Welcome back to MMA Al Dente. I'm here to talk about Jalin Turner versus Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker is 33 years old, 22-12 as a pro, and giving up 3 inches of height to 28-year-old Jalin Turner, who is 13-6. Hooker, he's been through a lot. We've seen him in the last few years engage in many wars, a lot of them 5-rounders, and just he's got a lot of mileage. Despite being 33 years old, the mileage is there. I mean, he does have 34 fights, but some of those fights we've seen, they count for like 5 fights. I'm talking about the Paul Felder fight, the Edson Barboza fight, even though that was only 3 rounds, the Dustin Poirier fight. Dan Hooker, he's definitely a savage, and if you're not able to destroy him with destructive power, he's going to be in there till the very end. Again, aside from Barboza, who got him out of there in round 3. But Dan Hooker, he's an incredible fighter, really skilled everywhere. Just, I think he's missing some qualities here that would pose more of a threat to Jalin Turner. Jalin Turner, he's got to be knocked dead or out-wrestled. Dan Hooker could win the striking battle, and I guess he could knock him out. Jalin Turner, I do think, might have a potentially weak chin, but Dan Hooker doesn't have that like Chandler type of power, even Arnold Allen, that extra level of power that I think it would take to make Jalin Turner pay on the feet with pure power. And the wrestling wise, Dan Hooker has shown it. Got a big win over Nasrat Haqparast using pure wrestling. He's definitely a decent wrestler, but not a great one. Even going back to a lot of his losses, he was ripped to the mat, that Jason Knight fight. But even if he is able to take down Jalin Turner, I don't think he's going to be able to sustain a wrestling attack like Matt Frivola and Mateusz Gamrot. Those are 2 insanely relentless wrestlers that'll hit you with 35 takedown attempts just to get 1 takedown. That's not Dan Hooker. So I think stylistically, this is a favorable matchup for Jalin Turner. Jalin Turner, he's 13-6. He's got 13 finishes, 9 by knockout or TKO, and 4 by submission. Really, really dangerous fighter. And his 6 losses come 3 by knockout, 3 by decision. Vicente Luque knocked him dead in his debut, I believe, his UFC debut. This guy Richard Leroy got him out of there in round 3, and this guy Borja knocked him out in 11 seconds. I tried to see that fight, but I couldn't. I could imagine what it looks like, though, if it's 11 seconds long. And I'm thinking his chin failed him. His 3 losses by decision were, I don't know who else beat him by decision, but the 2 ones I remember are Matt Frivola and Mateusz Gamrot in the UFC. Again, relentless wrestling attacks. Jalin Turner was able to keep up with both guys and made them really close fights, but he wasn't able to thwart the wrestling, and that's why he lost both fights. Again, that Mateusz Gamrot fight was really, really close, and it was still a very impressive very impressive fight, and very impressive performance in defeat. But I'm taking Jalin Turner to win this fight. Again, I don't think Dan can follow the blueprint of Frivola and Gamrot, and I don't think Dan Hooker's got that, requisite power to make a potentially weak chin fail. Although I know he knocked out James Vick, and he's got plenty of knockouts throughout his career. Fucking knees have been there for him. Fucking whoever, Jim Miller, Ross Pearson. He's definitely got some good tricks, but he doesn't have that crushing overhand right type of power that I think it would take to get Jalin Turner out of there. And knees probably aren't going to be an issue for Jalin Turner, considering he's the longer, taller guy. I think this is a favorable matchup for Jalin Turner. I think he wins this fight by hurting Dan Hooker and putting him away in one way or another. And I do think, with a gun to my head, it would happen earlier rather than later. So Jalin Turner, round 1. I guess I'd go with a TKO or knockout, but it could easily be a submission as well. I think it would have to be more opportunistic. I don't think he's going to take Dan Hooker down and Kimura him or anything, like Islam Makhachev. But Jalin Turner via some sort of violent finish is the pick. And as for betting on him, he's minus 245. It's somewhat tempting, but my heart's not into it. I threw a sprinkle on the under, put it into another parlay. I'm sure it'll tear that to shreds at plus 130 for under a round and a half. I'm not crazy about under a round and a half, but this event I've played like 5 of those lines because it just or a few of them anyway, because there are some uh, weak chins on this card and fragile guys. So Jalin Turner is the pick. Dan Hooker, despite how he's looked in victory against some good guys recently, Kaja Puyez, Nazrat Hapkarast, that's really it. Going back to the Paul Felder victory, I think he's turned a corner, and also stylistically, I think he doesn't have what it takes to get Jalin Turner out of there. So Turner, round one. Like, share, subscribe, all that horse shit. Check out my other videos.